I'm not so good at the to-dos.
He's more better at the to-don'ts.
On Sunday
Do you
evening...
prep your day then?
Yeah.
Well, on Sunday evening, I prep the week, and then sporadically, I plan the day before.
Yes, the artiste method. Welcome to another edition of the Founder's Diary. I hope you're all feeling productive today, but if you're not, don't worry, because today we're going to talk about fun ways to maximize your productivity.
Yes, and how we plan the week, what productivity actually means, because it can mean, I think, a variety of different things. So excited to talk about it.
Yeah, you feeling productive today, Koen?
Feeling productive, in a good mood. So
all right.
It will be a funny episode.
I'm looking forward to it. Disclaimer, of course, this is our productivity tips.
It's productivity and some comedy.
Yes, on the side. So maybe to start things off, let's just dive into it. How do you plan your week?
That's a good question.
I mean, I imagine as founders, you have a lot of people asking you for things all the time. You have to balance investor things. You have to balance the day-to-day tasks, also strategic planning. So with all these things coming at you, maybe you can give some insight into how you kind of shape your week and balance all these things together.
Yeah, I think there are a couple things to take into consideration, because I think right now we're running a venture-backed business and we launched a new product, and for that new product we're trying to find product market fit. We're getting somewhere, but we're not there yet, and that also means that your schedule changes quite frequently, and there are a lot of ad hoc things that occur in your schedule. So right now my schedule is pretty simple. I always prepare it the day before. So I just do it always in the evening, and I just prepare my list. I do this already consistent for multiple years. And in that essence, I just have a couple days on my hand that I can count that I didn't do it. And if I don't do it, I don't feel good. So always preparing it the day before. And it's pretty simple. I have my to-dos and my A, 1, 2, 3. So it's more the priority. And sometimes I also have B or C priority. But right now it's just to do, and we can put a screenshot in the podcast.
Yeah.
Well,
to do.
Dine.
We'll depend. We'll see about if we can reveal the secrets of your to-do list. But I'm curious.
The to-dos of the day, which are fairly simple tasks, but do require time, and then more bigger topics of the day. So for today, for example, is review international invoices that needs to be transferred. It takes a lot of time, but it's a real to-do task. And start the partnership campaigns. So partnership campaigns are real an important task of the day, and these invoices are also important, but it's not impacting the business. So that's in a nutshell how I do it.
Yeah, and maybe to add upon that, it's something that I do most of the mornings from I think 9 to 11. I try to block. So it's a recurring event in my calendar, and it's just blocked. Just so that there are no meetings in that time with other people. But it's also not necessarily the time where I try to do finish the to-dos that I need to do for the day. But it's more sort of a creative block I have in the day where there's no distractions and I can just sort of more think. And sometimes you dive into a certain project. Sometimes it doesn't really, it's not super productive. I end up watching a little bit of YouTube or whatever, doing something. But I do think that's also really important because sort of the more creative work, I think it doesn't happen like this on the spot. You need to plan it in. And sort of that's the reason why I have these blocks, just so I can think a little bit, not only about the to-dos, but also more broad sort of, maybe we can say work on the business instead of work in the business all the time. So that's, the to-dos. I'm not so good at the to-dos.
He's more better at the to-don'ts.
On Sunday
Do
evening...
you prep your day then?
Yeah.
Well, on Sunday evening, I prep the week, and then sporadically I plan the day before.
Yes, the artiste method. Koen has more maybe the sculpture method.
For some reason, it just... I just don't feel good if I don't do it.
I'm with you.
It's like really printed in my head. So always I can just count it on my hand and I know exactly the times when I didn't do it.
Yeah.
But I think the times that I forgot about it was like in a crazy hectic period when we're closing off the investment round. Like my head was just full of legal crap. So
gets it out of your head onto the paper. But to your point, Sam, I think it's very interesting that, especially that you both have kind of these alternate methods, but for you it sounds like it's most important that you make sure that you carve out the time for those extra things, and like you'll figure out the order of finishing all the things that maybe are on that to-do list, but first preserving that like mental space for whatever else there might be, and prioritizing that first, and you'll get to XYZ or ABC of whatever you have for the day.
I don't know, maybe it's like the to-dos for me in the end, like they're not super complicated, like I can set myself to it. It's more sort of where I think, okay, maybe I need to spend more time thinking about this, or I'm creating a tutorial for the new product launch, but I have no idea sort of what angle we should take it, how to explain it. Then those moments is just like there are no distractions. So I can just think about it, watch a couple of other tutorials of other products, and then write our own script. Like that's just a simple example. But I think it's just important to have that sort of time, because it's hard to do it in a to-do list, because maybe it requires a bit more creativity. And then if you have 10 minutes to figure something out, like it might also be a little bit too short. And sometimes in those time blocks, I just do the regular things, but I just try to block it to see what happens.
And I guess, Koen, how do you fit in these kind of like moments for inspiration or for exploring or just thinking about the business without any particular like agenda?
It's a good one. I think when I make my to-dos, I'm not saying that if I write it down that day that I finish it that day. Like I try to do it, but sometimes it's a topic that's just in my mind, and it can roam in my mind for a week, and then boom, all of a sudden I know what to do. There's a good example with like the outreach stuff. Like I had it on my to-do already last week that I wanted to start it up, but I didn't feel confident yet to execute on it. So I waited, had a couple meetings, just sat on it for a while, and then the whole strategy just changed, and now I can execute the strategy. So I think sometimes I just write it down and it just roams in my mind, and once a topic is closed, I check it off. So I like having these things in my head. Like it's in my head, and then I see something outside or hear something from the team or a meeting, and then boom, it can spark like the solution for that particular subject. In this case, it was the outbound, and it's a funny story because outbound itself worked really well for us last year, but in 2023, a lot has changed in the market. There are so many outbound tools, and outbound doesn't work as well anymore. So I was thinking, I didn't know that, but now I know. Well, I had an assumption, but the assumption was confirmed by some data. And then I was like, okay, what else can we do? And then it roamed in my mind, and then we're like, okay, we're going to focus on agency partnerships, and we're going to focus on expanding our newsletter with emails versus trying to acquire people. So sometimes it just roams in your head, and I like that.
Sometimes it just like pops out. And
it's also a way to get creative. Like you have a to-do, but you don't necessarily do it the next day, but you just spend a bit more time thinking about, okay, how can I execute the to-do, like you said, and then another day, and then you have a few calls with people that you want to talk about on that particular subject, and then it clicks, and then you can schedule it in your agenda. So I think maybe what we're all saying is being flexible also allows for more productivity. So not killing yourself, like I need to do these and these things. Of course, there are certain things with deadlines, but I think as founders, there are also maybe a majority of things that don't really have a deadline. No one is asking you to do these things. So you just like it doesn't necessarily have to happen the next day. You just have to plan in moments where it could happen, where you do find the time to work on it, or it clicks or whatever.
One of my favorite podcasts, How I Built This, also talks to a lot of entrepreneurs like yourselves. And they were actually just talking to Jason Derulo about how he makes time for his business. And I thought this was kind of interesting is he said, even as someone who has like a pretty creative output, like music, he still fits his own schedule, like very like you, Koen, thinks from this time to this time, I'm going to work on writing songs. Doesn't matter if I'm feeling creative or whatnot. He also sees it very much like a job or like tasks based. So I guess kind of like along that mindset, like I'm sure you also have these set things that you have to do in a pretty regular amount of time, a lot of like requests coming in. How do you kind of balance that with all of these stresses and all of these things that we've kind of talked about that are on both of your agendas?
Yeah, I think they're like the usual things.
Yeah.
So like it's whether it's finance things, operation things, deadlines that need to be met. But each Monday we also have a meeting in the morning where we really look into, okay, we know we have to do like all these things, but what are really the priorities of this week? Like what are the activities that we really need to finish that will sort of move the needle or like push us forward?
Yeah.
And based upon that meeting, we sort of sometimes reschedule things or prioritize other things or deprioritize certain tasks. And make sure that's sort of finished by the end of that week. So I think that's how we every Monday we sort of look at what needs to be done, and then we change or we don't change certain things.
Yeah, I guess what I'm also hearing a lot is that communication when you have like a couple of these co-founders, at least in our case, where you really have to work together to see who can tackle what.
Yeah, maybe that's also the thing with Jason Derulo.
Yeah.
Of course, he has a huge team, but I think a lot of his work might also be solo work.
Yeah,
he's just
true.
writing the songs, and where, of course, we also have solo work, but a lot is also dependent on like when certain stuff is finished from engineering or whatever. So it needs a lot of communication in order to plan the week, so to say.
And I guess, Koen, you have to travel quite a lot, especially being the CEO. Often you have to kind of be here or there, but also still very involved. We've seen even when you're like across in a different country, you're slacking or making sure that you have the time for us. So I'm curious a bit, like, how do you navigate that kind of like your busy schedule, maybe being abroad, but still making sure that you have kind of the time to be productive and tackle these priorities?
Be a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
I think just... I always look at like myself, like how do I think there's like, it's like a KPI, right? It's not that I look really from analytical standpoint, but just listen to my body really good. And it's just seeing what the limits are and making sure you keep balanced. And sometimes that goes well for months. Sometimes you're tired already in a month, so you do way too much. So I think it's just a balance act, but I think it's always a responsible feeling you have, hence why you just are always responsible. You feel responsible, so it's just always like, regardless how you feel or jet lag you are, it's just the responsible feeling that just keeps the light on, so to say.
Yeah.
And I think, it's maybe it comes also down to like when we were way younger, since I'm the older brother and the older brother is always the responsible one. But it's something from my youth that is just printed in my mind for some reason, but just always feeling the responsibility for something that sometimes maybe you push yourself way too hard. But I think in this case, I feel comfortable in that position because I know I can just take the responsibility whenever I'm abroad, whenever it is Sunday evening. Doesn't matter.
Maybe touching on something you said there about balance, do you feel like having some of these kind of like productivity tips or structure that you've both mentioned has helped you to make sure that you stay balanced, that you don't burn out, and that you can kind of support each other or support yourself in making sure you don't overreach your capacity?
Yeah, no, I think it's like a recurring topic of Sam and myself, right? We talk about it quite a lot because, obviously we're brothers. We're also having family dinners, and it's just a topic that, how do you feel? I think you also said it in a podcast episodes back, about how your parents ask you like how you feel. Are you stressed? Are you this? Are you that? But for example, Sam and I, like we work out already for like 2 years consistently together. Sometimes we feel that our body isn't 100% fit, or like you get like weird little injuries, but that means that your body is tired. Or when was it? I think last year during the Christmas holiday, like it was so weird for the body to be in an environment where there was no stress. So the body was confused. So I didn't feel that in a really, really long time. So these are things you all learn. But I think in essence, it's more like, hey, do you feel well? But also try to educate yourself. So it's me also looking at other entrepreneurs. What are they doing? And I just have like a couple benchmarks, because you also have the fat billionaire and you have the fit billionaire. Who would you rather want to be? Just as a silly example. But that's just how it is. And especially if you have a lot of stress, you need a healthy mind. Healthy body is a healthy mind. And I think one example is like, for example, Patrick Bet-David. He always talks about how important sports is in his life and how balanced it keeps him. So I take these advices for granted. And so far, I'm still sitting here. I still think I don't look 40 yet. I'm obviously not 40. I don't have gray hair, so far so
I
good.
have gray hair.
You have gray hair.
Uh-oh.
Something
Gray
is going
eyebrows.
wrong. You also gray eyebrow? Really?
Maybe you gotta do Koen's
Do not
schedule
tune
blocking.
into the video podcast. Just listen.
No
to Spotify.
zooming in. No filters time.
And your birthday is Wednesday.
36? No.
26.
47.
47.
No, but there's no shame, and of course, in getting older. But
No, of course not.
It was fun. There was a time, I don't know why it was, but every VC meeting we went to, they said that I was the older brother. But now they don't say it anymore.
They don't say it anymore. But there's even other funnier story. So speaking about it, it's just a funny one. But our younger brother, so we have two younger brothers, Pepijn and Jim, and I went with Jim to the Apple store, and they were asking, "Hey, are you guys twins?" And he is 21.
Wow.
Back then, or 22.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's a compliment for me. So
Definitely.
just move your body a lot.
Yes. Move your body, but also I think kind of what you were saying as well is like when you're talking about having this responsibility to the business, like it's also on you to keep yourself in a state where you can be like helpful to the business. And if you're burning yourself out, if you're not taking care of yourself, I'm sure it also feels like you can't really fulfill that responsibility that you feel and that you feel like you have to this
100%. And it's not, some days you don't have the energy.
Of course.
And then you also need to listen to yourself like, hey, okay, maybe I'm going to go home a little sooner, just relax a bit and then do some things here and there. So it's just a balance act. And I think the key is never neglect yourself. Like you obviously can't neglect the business, but I think you as a founder comes first and then comes the business. Because if there's no founders, there's no business.
Yeah.
So I think, but it's difficult to be extremely self-aware and just keep educating yourself. Because the bigger the company gets, the bigger the responsibilities, the bigger the stress, etc., etc. So you really have to grow with the business in order to cope with everything that comes with it. Because the stress levels right now, finding product market fit, is way beyond running an agency, for example. It's different because you have raised money and you want to make sure the money you've raised will get a nice multiplier back for your investors and for yourself, of course, and for the team.
And also what is productivity? So that's something I always thought more or less I was a robot. So I can work 24/7, nothing will happen, no headaches, like etc. etc. I can do anything, but you can't. And it's also sort of a mindset shift, which my girlfriend mostly taught me, is that productivity does not necessarily mean working. Productivity can also be taking time to rest or creating time to rest and actually resting, because that's also productive, because in the end, those sort of activities allow you to be more productive the next day. So I think that's an important mindset shift. Like if I want to be productive today, it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to work for 12 hours or even more. Being productive on a day can also be doing everything that you need to do, and then taking really good care of yourself, taking time to rest, because then the next day you can be productive again. Because it's not sort of a race, like for a week you're super productive and then the weekend you crash and burn. Like that's not sustainable. Of course, you need to push yourself and you need to work really hard, but you also need to take a look at the other part, like resting, because you need to rest. You can't pour from an empty cup, so you need to fill your own cup.
Absolutely. I think that's like 100% spot on, especially what you said, that advice from your girlfriend. I think that really like hits home, because sometimes if you don't take the time to do something that it's going to help you to be whatever your version of productive is, like whether it's like taking 5 minutes every 45 minutes to have like away from your screen, or all of these things, or muting notifications on Slack for 2 hours during that like focus period, or your like Sunday tradition of like taking time, figuring out what your week's prios are going to be. I think like whatever that definition of productivity is for you, I think that's really good takeaway from your own advice and from your girlfriend's tips as well.
Yeah, it's an important mindset shift, because you, like as a founder, I think mostly you like to think you're this productivity maniac or robot type of, but you're not. Like it's not gonna happen. You need to take a look sort of at the other part and maximize and be productive in how you rest and how you recharge, and not only the work behind the laptop and the meetings and all that stuff.
Absolutely. Well, maybe to wrap it off, I would love to hear from each of you just like one nice piece of advice for all the entrepreneurs and founders tuning in, or who might tune in the future. Like if you could just do one thing like tomorrow to help you be like less stressed or more productive, what would it be?
I think for me, it's writing down for yourself what productivity means for you. Like I established the values with myself that my to-do list defines my productivity that day. And in my list, in my prep list for the day, is also rest included. So if I don't do it, I'm not productive. So I think that is for me like the structure that I like. But write it down, define for yourself what it means, because my way of work might not work for you or for Sam.
I think, if like advice for founders, if you want to push yourself, build a business, whatever, be as productive as possible, work hard, build something nice. So really push yourself. You also need to be in really good contact with your emotions, with your body, so that you always know sort of if you have the energy, if you're in the right mood. Because if you're not sort of, it sounds vague, but in contact with yourself and how you actually feel, then you will run into a brick wall.
And we don't want that when you're running a business.
No.
There's enough stresses and challenges as it is. Well, thanks. I think we got some great tips. So on one side, create a structure that works for you. Think about like what this means for your goals. And on the other side, kind of stay in tune with yourself and like your needs. Keep a pulse on that so that you can make sure that you're fit for the business while we're finding product market fit.
Yes,
exactly.
Well, thanks for another edition of the Founder's Diary. Don't forget to tune into our next one coming soon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.